Welcome back, thinkers, to Season 4, Episode 17 of Thinking Critically. I hope you all had a fantastic holiday, New Year's period with all your loved ones. And we are starting 2023 with a hugely controversial episode on the OGL. Now, I recorded this with the guest on Saturday, the 7th of January. So at that point, it was all very much up in the air. And the other thing is that we decided on that topic literally 3 minutes before I hit the record button. So we had another topic in mind, shipwrecks, which will be the topic of a future episode. And we drop in a little Easter egg in the middle of this episode as well around that. But yes, we literally decided 3 minutes before hitting recording, let's talk about the OGL. So caveats up front, I know not of what I speak. And there are a couple of poor takes on my part in there. One particularly awkward one around the Apple App Store, which was quite naive. So since then I've done a little bit of self-education and have changed my view on that. I'll leave a comment in the episode description around what specifically. But otherwise, please do listen to this episode through that filter of we were recording, as I said, on the 7th of Jan, at a time when everything was very much up in the air. And yeah, there was a lot of unknowns, as there still probably is at the time this episode drops. So please do bear that in mind as we go in to talk about the new OGL 1.1. If you're not familiar with the OGL, what it stands for, what it means, what's the impact that Wizards of the Coast is suggesting it might have, please do check out the Gizmodo link in the episode description now for a bit of homework before you start listening. Otherwise, it's not going to mean a huge amount to you. And the only other piece of information is on Sunday, the 15th of January, I will be playing in a game with the Dungeons, Dice and Dudes guys, and we'll be streaming for the first time since we were all stuck at home doing it remote. So if you want to see me as a player completely kicking back and not having to worry about DMing, then tune in to twitch.tv/ddndpod. That's Delta Delta November Delta Papa Oscar Delta, only letters. This Sunday, the 15th at about 8 p.m. UK time, GMT. Otherwise, welcome back. And let's dive in. And today I'm joined once again by Matty P. Welcome back to the show, May. How are you doing?
Hey, man. Good. How are you?
Good. We are recording this thanks to the time difference. One bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, or perhaps not. Now we're on video for me, and then burning the midnight oil for Matty P. So yes, I'm good. I've had my coffee. I've had my granola. I'm good to go. Are you good? You good?
Yeah, man. I'm high energy. I just found down the supermarket. Yeah, every now and then you find one of those things at the supermarket where you're like, this is definitely bad, but I'm gonna spend my money on it, please. Because it was a boba bubble tea ice cream.
Lovely. Yep.
Okay. And so it's like a brown sugar thing. But when you it's ice cream and it's brown sugar kind of burnt flavor. And as you get into it, it's got like bits of jelly in it for like the boba balls. Man, I'm pinging off the walls out here. I'm full of sugar. It was so good.
You say like, oh, every now and again you buy something bad for you at the grocery shop. That's like half my trolley is bad stuff that shouldn't be in there.
Yeah, man. That's what the Asian grocer's for, because they got stuff where you can't read the label and you go like, I hope this one's food.
Yeah, we do love the Asian supermarket where we go and we've got loads of boba mixes, and we did have ice cream and mochi and all sorts. So you're preaching to the converted very much so.
Yeah, I love it.
So I've done my coffee ritual with my Bialetti. I've ground those beans. Now I'm revealing a little bit too much about myself about my snobbish coffee antics, but I'm ready to go. We of course recorded way back. I am going to have a date for you all, actually. Let me look here.
Can I guess? It was September in 2021.
Okay, you got the year correct. but the episode dropped in July, the end of July, though. So quite only about 4 weeks out. I'll give you. So yeah, 30th of July, 2021, for Pressure. And having a look, so we talked a little bit about narrative pressure, and then a lot about probably how we've put ourselves under pressure, both in the DMC and also creatively, I imagine. So go and check out that one from it's 2023 now, isn't it?
Don't say it in a bad way. It's good. Dude, I'm so stoked about just like New Year. I like that it starts with a 3. 3 is like a cool number. It's my favorite number. I don't know why. It's just kind of like at some point when you're a kid, you pick a favorite number. That's your favorite number.
There was too many 2s in last year's year. Too many 2s. So
I didn't enjoy it. But the thing is, we're not here to talk about something good. We're here to actually talk about the bad. We're going to look into the dark side of current happenings. This is a last minute topic. Breaking news.
So telling everybody that's why I've been stalling for the last 3 minutes. That's indeed. So in a rare turn of events, we have been blessed, I suppose, with a very hot topic recently over the past week or so around the. Let me get my legalese correct. The allegedly leaked quote unquote documents for the new OGL 1.1. Is that correct?
It is OGL 1.1. Yes.
Right. Okay. Right. So that is what we're going to talk about today, and what that means, the impact it's had already, and the impact it is alleged to potentially have in the future should it come to fruition.
Dan, let me just jump in here and say that I am a lawyer and this is legal advice. Let's go. No, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer.
Everything I'm about to say should absolutely be used.
Look, and here's the thing. Like, I don't think either of us are like qualified beyond the fact that it impacts us. It impacts me directly because I am a publisher of Dungeons and Dragons content. I do use the current OGL 1.0A, and I am also financially dependent on it. Like I work 5 days a week on D&D stuff, and then 2 days a week in the office on my day job. And the changes that are coming are going to be wild for me. Like, hey Dad, what's your skin in the game? Like, how do you feel that this might affect you?
Okay, so I want to, for the benefit of the listeners, I want to the main thing I want to communicate first is that the thing that really sold it to me was that one you just mentioned, the 1.0A, is, as in the current one, was 900 words. The new one is 9,000 words. That was the real thing that communicated to me, like, oh, this is serious business now. This isn't just like some document. This is now like they've got the lawyers in.
Yeah, when I heard that, and I'm still not 100% sure, because the 1.1 OGL, we don't actually have it. It has just been bits and pieces drip fed through the media, through leaks, and different sources have different amounts of information, even though the information is consistent between different media outlets. And when I heard there's over 9,000 words in the OGL, I actually thought that person was doing a meme. And it's only now that you're saying it that I'm going, oh, wait, really?
Yes. Yep. So I understand. I'll say over 9,001 just to distance myself from the meme and make it, legit.
Yeah, you don't have the Dragon Ball Z OGL. You're going to get sued, my friend.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to get 2 litigation cases against you. Just the one is fine. Thank you. So to answer your question, the main way, as far as I see it and understand it, again, consider me woefully naive in all facets of life. I had and I have been in a long-term way writing some of my modules that I've played in my D&D 5e campaign with the ideal, my lofty ideal, one day of saying, hey, my players really enjoyed this. I really enjoyed running it. I think other people will enjoy it. Let me put it out there. Coming from zero, I wouldn't have expected to monetize those. However, I understand one element of the potential new 1.1 is that anything that is ostensibly D&D, they can just co-opt as their own IP, essentially.
Yeah. And it's it's tricky because even though there have been noises about, there might be a separate license for people that are making stuff for free to distribute just for community access, and there's a different license for people that are trying to profit off something. The leaks seem to make it seem that like it's a bit muddy here. Like maybe they are the same. You know, maybe they're both being treated the same way. I was watching a video by Treant Monk, and his analysis, he was saying from the sources he'd pulled that it seems like even if it is free content, Wizards can claim it. Now, what I looked at the language from the Gizmodo article and something else that I read, it said that you still retain the ownership and the copyright, but you are granting Wizards of the Coast a license to do pretty much everything an owner can do, including reselling that license to other people. The only thing that they couldn't do with their power of the license, as far as I understand, is revoke your ownership. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's not like a tug of war where they can win, but that is kind of scary. I was talking to someone in my my Twitch chat just today, and they were saying, "Oh, can they claim characters?" I'm like, "Oh, what do you mean?" He goes, "Oh, like if I have my own personal characters, my NPCs, and my PCs in my document, like if I've published something like Big George's Guide to Punching Bears, and it's a whole supplement about bear punching and the rules for it, told from the perspective of my personal OC player character, Big George, dude, in 1 year, there's going to be a Big George movie. It's going to be played by Chris Pine. I'm going to be out the front. They're going to make me pay to get in."
Yeah. The ultimate insult.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I was getting at. That's one of the reasons why I was originally more than happy to be like, yeah, let me put up there free D&D 5e, get, you know, as I said, my players really enjoyed it. My ultimate goal is to have other people have that same experience. So that's fine. But now I'd be like, well, yes, I'm doing it for free, but also I want to be proud and prideful of my own work. And if I suddenly wake up next month and they're releasing another new adventure book and, oh, look, there's a module in there that's exceptionally similar to the one that I wrote, I'm going to be like, oh, man, come on. And I kind of don't want that to happen. So that has, for me, so the biggest thing off the top of my head, it has been that, like, oh, I guess that's a bit of a shame now, because that was like a cool creative output for me, and now it's not, maybe because no one will see it.
Yeah, so that is tricky. I do think that so at the moment, the way the license works on Dungeon Masters Guild, with the Coast marketplace for selling this kind of stuff, the license that you agree to on that platform, in exchange for you being able to use pretty much anything you want, like a broad menu of licensed content, like their Forgotten Realms lore and rules and stuff, and talking about it, and just going to town, homebrewing the way you'd want to, you are giving up your publishing rights to them. But in that case, I think the license says that they own it. Like, this was the same reason why when Matt Mercer made the Blood Hunter, maybe, or maybe the Gunslinger, one of his original classes, and he published it on DM's Guild, when they came round, Critical Role, to publishing their own book with their own characters, they couldn't use that stuff that they'd put on DM's Guild, because now DM's Guild owned it. They had the exclusive publishing rights. So the way that it's going to work in the new OGL, allegedly, is different, because you would still have publishing rights to publish it. It wouldn't be like you're giving them exclusive rights to it.
Okay.
But there are a bunch of other concerns as well. There's a bunch of other real wacky stuff. The real scary thing for me is that it's amendable. So when you agree to the OGL, it seems like you are agreeing to, like, future versions of the OGL. And they could change the terms. It's tricky. And I can't imagine, like, tethering part of my livelihood to something that was by definition like quicksand. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Amorphous, abstract. Yeah. We a legitimate recent example of something similar was that for my place of work, we were signing a contract to be a reseller for some, let me keep it all nice and generic, a business instant messaging application that businesses can use to instant message their customers, people like us. And it's a big platform, and part of that agreement was basically like, we reserve the right to irrevocably change, and if we say you have to stop selling it, then you have to stop selling it, and if we say you've got to stop providing that service to your customers, then you have to stop providing that service to your customers. And our finance director looked through the contract and was like, whoa, there's a lot of red flags in here. Why am I being told to sign this like today? Because salespeople being salespeople, push, sell. And he's like, no, pump the brakes. I need to properly read this and take a look and make sure we're comfortable with potentially pulling the rug out from our customers, because this now affects us. And it's that very similar kind of like, whoa, hang on, what is going on? So that's not a comfortable place, I imagine, for most people to sit. Is that am I standing on this rug that someone's already holding on to the corners of?
Yeah. And like there are a few things that I'm like, if it's 9,000 words and it's only been a small percentage of it that's leaked, and it's people speculating on those, of the ones that have been leaked, the things that I'm worried about changing, I'd be scared of the idea that if I'd signed the license and I was using it and I was playing ball, if they decided to take away that license, that would be scary. But I'm also scared about some of the way the finances and royalty stuff works. It's like when I talk about this on Twitter, I get slammed by people saying, "Oh, Matt, don't you know that you only have to report your income if you're making more than $50,000 from the open gaming license, and you only have to pay royalties if you're making $750,000." But when I think about like, why would you have to report your income if you were making over 50 grand, right? It's because they're trying to work out how much lower they can make that threshold of having, like when you have to start paying royalties. And what they're going to end up with is a bunch of data that will inform them on how to use this dial to turn it to make the optimal amount of money. They're going to min-max us.
Squeeze the lemon for every last drop. Yeah, absolutely.
And so I don't know what that will feel like. And we're not going to know what that will feel like until they get their data and people start engaging with this and they twist the dial. But I just want to add something here, because I've been telling my audience this on Twitch. A lot of content creators, like you and me, Dan, we're going to run around saying the sky's falling. It's like, because for us, people that are publishing content or want to publish content and have an eye to try and make like a lifestyle and business out of this stuff, it's bad. It is catastrophic for us. But if you're just out there and you're a fan of D&D, it is not catastrophic for you. You know what I mean? So even though all the content creators, who essentially are the media, are going to be saying everything's ruined, for you personally, things might not be ruined. It will just probably mean you will have less third-party content. And also, whenever you mention that you play D&D, there might be someone that goes, really? Why?
Have you tried the new raft finder?
Raft finder? Dude, where's my raft?
So I'm cynical in my old age, or crushed by capitalism so much. But as we've talked about, like, if you are in those creative circles, you often hear that, like, the sky's falling, as you said. But I am very much like, like you've just described, basically yes and no. But for the millions and millions and millions of people out there who, if you said to them OGL, even if you said to them like AD&D, they'd go, I don't know what that is. Yeah, there's still millions and millions of people out there that are completely, essentially unaffected. Like, they just turn up every other week to their friendly local gaming store. Somebody runs a game for them, and then they go home, and that's it. And they're like, that's fine. They go to sleep one day, wake up the next day, nothing has changed.
but can you imagine the moment where someone goes to play their Adventurers League game? It's great. They've got a level 3 Ranger. Rangers are the best class, they reckon. And they go into the game and they start playing the Dungeon Master's like, okay, you start in a town, and then bam, Chris Perkins kicks open the door with a bag, flash that he's got a gun. He grabs the DM and drags him away. And then he says, you guys didn't see anything. OGL business, get out of here.
Official OGL business. There's just the chair knocked over, and then an awkward silence descends across the room.
and that's the moment that ranger steps up to become the dungeon master.
That we got, oh, man. It's times like these, and I wish I was good at like drawing, because then I could do a webcomic, and then that would be very funny. that would be a funny one to do. Kicking down the door.
It is really worrying. There's one other thing that's super worrying as well. We've already got an OGL, right? We're all publishing under it at the moment, and it's been around for 20 years, according to all of the videos that I've watched. Because I've just been doom scrolling for like the last, 4 or 5 hours. That's the only reason I know anything. So if I get anything wrong, blame YouTube. But for like 20 years, we've had this OGL, and it has been thought to have been irrevocable, because it says we grant you this license for authorized works as long as, like, in perpetuity, meaning forever. And the contentious part that all these lawyers are arguing about is, when it says in perpetuity, does that mean that the license is revocable, or is the license irrevocable? And you can find any commentator online that will tell you either it is revocable or it is irrevocable. But in the Sky is Falling version, we're going, okay, they're going to take away our ability to use the old license, which we're currently publishing under, and say the only license that's valid now is now 1.1. And there are so many things, Dan, that are published under that original license. Not just my stuff, not just your perspective stuff, not just like your Chris Perkins webcomic, but Pathfinder uses the OGL. Okay, there's the Dark Souls 5e supplement uses the OGL. There's the Lord of the Rings 5e supplement that uses the OGL. And I heard my friend Anto from Icarus Games, he's doom and gloom about it. He's from Wales, so that makes sense. He said that if Wizards of the Coast have the right to publish content using the stuff that you publish using their 1.1 OGL, if a company like that has the license to the Tolkien stuff and is using the OGL, if they accept the terms of the 1.1, does that mean that Wizards of the Coast can now start doing Middle-earth stuff? And like, that sounds wacky, so probably not. But I don't know. I guess that's just a testament to how imprecise of a picture we have at the moment.
Yes, yeah. And I'm always reticent to comment too much on these kind of amorphous, ever-changing things, but I think in this instance there is enough eyes on it, those who obviously more knowledgeable than you or I on the kind of legalese that's used in these kind of things, that it warrants these kind of discussions. And I did see on I was going to say any scrolling at the moment is doom scrolling regarding this stuff. So like, you can't don't feel bad about it, because you go anywhere at the moment and it's there. But somebody, I think Ginny D, she tweeted something that was like talking about it as we are, and somebody said, "Oh, perhaps you'll go and enjoy Pathfinder now." And she replied with like, "You know what Pathfinder uses, right?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh yeah, that's again a bigger impact than I was perhaps anticipating."
It's far reaching. I did see a commentator, I can't remember her name, I hadn't seen it before. She had a great video, but her perspective was that there are a lot of books and products that use the OGL, just slap it in the back of their book as kind of a fail safe, or like a courtesy, even if they might necessarily not have needed to, because part of the promises it was like, hey, if you put this on your stuff, we're not going to sue you. Okay, don't worry. This is your protection against us. We're never going to ask anything of you. We're not going to sue you. And now it seems like, SpaghettiOs.
I would hate to be in that position if it is retroactively. Anything that goes back and changes stuff that's already happened annoys me to begin with, because it's like, that stuff's happened. It's water under the bridge. So I'd hate to be in the position to have an exhaustive backlog of adventures published and then be like, oh, do I have to go and take them all down now? Is that something that has to happen?
That's what
like that? Well, I hate to be you then. Because of that, like, one thing that irks me, and I know, again, this is me being naive, but for end users, for end customers, things should be relatively intuitive and relatively easy. I get annoyed whenever in any part of my life when things are harder than they should be, like buying insurance and stuff like that, when you have to do complicated things or jump through complicated loops. I'm like, this shouldn't be like this. This should just be easy for me. Like, the business is here for me. So I hate now to have to be like, oh, I have to get like an A level, a GCSE in law to be able to understand whether I can make my stupid, goofy bear punching thing now. Like, that's just not easy. It should be. Yes, I understand there's licenses and copyrights. I'm not that dumb. I understand there needs to be some level of safety net for all parties involved, but it should be in plain language that doesn't make you second guess and go to bed worrying whether Hasbro are going to be knocking on your door and demanding your tax revenue for the last 10 years. Like,
though this like current, it is a state of confusion at the moment. And that's not like by design, right? This is a leak, and not even a complete leak. And it might not even be a leak of like the final document. What if we got the April Fool's version or something? But because like, I bet that if Hasbro or Wizards could have done their PR the way they wanted to, even if it was the same information, it would feel less bad. Because what feels bad at the moment is just not knowing. So before I pull the trigger on, like, you know, hiring some editors to start making generic versions of my content, like system agnostic versions, I'm waiting to hear Wizards of the Coast release a statement. And if that statement's like, we're coming for you, Perko.
Specifically, you by name, I think I do think in one of those 9,000 words it says Matty P is there. I did hear a proper tinfoil hat theory, if you wanted to go down that route, that it was as with every leak ever, there's always the group that say, oh, it was a deliberate, you know, imagine it was a deliberate leak and they've leaked it to test the waters of how well it would be received. And then they go, when they actually release it, they can go, okay, well, that went down like a shipwreck. That's an inside joke only two of us will get.
If this is them doing that, then this is the equivalent of that episode of SpongeBob where he rips his pants and he's trying to like make people laugh. And at one point he goes, pretending to drown. No, because it's not funny because he got in trouble for pretending to drown at the beach. This is a pretending to drown moment.
Yes.
That's pretty wild, because remember a couple of weeks ago, maybe even like a month ago, there was a previous speculation about there being no OGL, no open gaming license for 6th edition. And people started this open D&D hashtag to say, no, we want an open and free D&D. Wizards needs to address our concerns about whether there's going to be an OGL. And Wizards came out with a statement on D&D Beyond, really kind of alleviating a lot of our fears and directly addressing our concerns. But the weird thing is about this leak is that parts of it contradict what they were saying. And so I'll be really curious to see what their statement is on this one. Also, I want to know who leaked it so bad.
Surprise. No, that would be that. No, that would be an expose for thinking critically. That's what I should be working on, maybe. But funny you should mention that, because it has been a roller coaster for the last, probably like 8 weeks in total of, oh my god, the world's going to end. Actually, no, that was all wrong, and it's totally okay, and we're probably going to be fine. To, oh my god, no, the world's going to end, but in a slightly different way now. To then, well, actually, we don't know anything, and maybe we'll be fine again. So it has been tricky keeping up, and again, in these social network, circles, sometimes it can be very one-sided and doom and gloom. So it's hard to kind of see the wood for the trees, as it were, sometimes.
Oh yeah, look, I think most of the feeling and the chatter is just a symptom of like what happens on social media. I do have their statement from their first thing open now. I'm just scanning through it to see if there's anything in here that I was like, oh, I was comforted by that. Um,
The answer to that's going to be no. I was not comforted by anything here.
Like, here's another weird thing. So it was called an open gaming license because there was no communication needed between you and Wizards of the Coast for you to use this license. Here is a bit of paper. All you need to do to accept this bit of paper is put this bit of paper in your thing, right? Now, it is not an open gaming license because you actually have to accept the license terms. You have to register with Wizards of the Coast because there's a potential that you're going to have to tell them what you're working on. You're going to have to tell them how much you're making if you're making over 50 grand. And you're also going to have to put their badge on your thing, made with OGL or whatever. Like, I think you would actually have to feature that on the cover, probably, or the spine, somewhere visible, I imagine. And like, there are some things that I'm concerned about as well as a video commentator specifically, because I can look at this and go, oh, that makes sense. I'm not allowed to publish printable, booky content about stuff, right? But if I homebrew something, because I'm still going to be homebrewing stuff, I'm still going to be making up rules. Am I allowed to talk about those rules that I've made up on a YouTube video or on a stream or something like that? Or does that count as publishing rules or like their verbiage?
I that stuff, thinking about that stuff scares me.
Yeah.
Like, I wanted to say, like, I'm not that naive. I get it, right? I get the money men at Hasbro have definitely over the last 12 months been like, guys, there is a huge market out there that's using your stuff in a way, like, you should make money off of it. Like, it completely, you know, remove the emotion from the equation. Like, I get it. That's what businesses do. They're not businesses otherwise. They exist to make profit. So I get it. If there was a big bunch of money over there that somebody went, hey, down low, somebody's using your thing and making a shitload of money off of it. Do you want some of that money? Maybe I'd go, yeah. And I think if you ask people a lot of that, they probably would say, yeah. You know, it's the same way that everybody gets a lot of stick, rightly so, for, we have it in the UK a lot, like tax evasion. You know, people make loads of money and then their accountants do some creativity actions, and then suddenly they pay less tax and they get rightfully, in the most part, thrown under the bus for it. But I think if you took most British people and said, hey, you're making £10 million, do you want to make essentially more because you'd be taxed less for basically doing nothing, they'd probably go, yeah. I think brass tacks, especially in this current economic climate, they probably would say, do you know what? Yeah, it's a bit immoral, but who's it hurting? Nobody, fine. And they probably would. Or at least you don't get into the position of making that money without being the kind of person that would say yes. So I can see why Hasbro are doing this, because there's just so much, there is so much money there to be made. Yeah. Like, if you think of the business of Critical Role, who are just now their own monolithic business machine, because they had their own controversy recently, right? Well, last year at some point around their stuff. I seem to recall there was some.
Oh yeah, that's a good thing to talk about. Yeah, I do know about their license agreement with their fan content. Let's talk about that a bit later, because I reckon Critical Role, that'll lead to its own whole tangent, and I wanted to go back to something you just said.
Sure.
About how some people would go, yeah, well, to be fair, I would like to pay less tax, even if it is a bit immoral. Like, in the same way, yeah, can't fault Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast for doing this. Here's something that I do trust about corporate entities. They are looking out for their best interests in the sense that, like, they probably have some data. They probably have some evidence. They would have had to make a business case for literally everything they've done, including risk assessment. And they've gone, do you know what? It's worth it. And what I wonder is the current fallout. Did they predict this? Like, are we still within the threshold of they went like, no, this is part of it. This is part of the pain that we're going to have to go through. Or like, have we exceeded it? And if we did exceed the amount of pain that they'd predicted in whatever risk assessment they've done, I wonder if they would stop or they would keep going, like a sunk cost fallacy. And like, I wonder if they imagine this as being like, now it's going to be unpopular. It's going to be a PR hit, because I don't think that even like the most zealous employee at Hasbro Wizards of the Coast would look at this and go, people are going to love this one. Just in time for Christmas. I don't think anybody's saying that. I think they're saying, okay, we've got to sell this. We've got to put like a positive face on this one. But I wonder if they went, this is going to be a PR hit, and they didn't realize, oh, this is going to actually like be disruptive. This is going to disrupt this ecosystem, because that's what it feels like. This feels like an environmental disaster. I feel like somebody's suing the Great Barrier Reef. You know?
It is hard to these big machines, and I've also seen people talk about it in the same way of like Magic the Gathering has already gone through this pain, and we are now just like the second.
What happened there? Can you?
Maybe not the same for same, but I think Magic the Gathering is now in a similar case where, because people said you can still enjoy D&D without endorsing Wizards of the Coast or Hasbro, because people already do that for Magic the Gathering, because that's already been through maybe not a similar situation, but a similar kind of bastardization of the core kind of original principles. So now, not that I'm into MTG that much, but there is branded and licensed sets of cards for Lord of the Rings, like for Warhammer, for everything under the sun. Yeah, you can get like a 40k Magic the Gathering deck that somehow inexplicably works with the rest of the Magic the Gathering stuff. So that has been, to use an impolite term, like hoard out again, just to make that kind of stuff. So it's similar things have already been done. So there's I have in my vision of this head this old like grade wizened MTG players that are like, get too old for this. Or that you know, that noose around the neck first time like meme. You know, it's already, you know, there's a precedent has been set in a way. With the money, they have probably found themselves over the last 5 years of going, whoa, it's exploded over the last 5 years, and suddenly everybody loves it, and we're making a shitload of money. They've probably had experts. They've probably had, you know, paid the obnoxiously expensive marketing and PR people to come in to say like, no, this will be, you know, as you said, you're going to be taking a hit on this. But as you said, profit and loss, or, you know, the risk is you're going to take a hit, but your return on investment is 2 years, and then suddenly you're laughing all the way to the bank for the rest of time. Then go ahead.
There are two things that I look up that I probably won't need, but I think about them a lot because it's super interesting. One is strategy for when you win the lottery. What should you do? And like, have you done the same thing where you go like, I want to see
it's a fun thought experiment to have.
It's so and
fun
it's like,
and depressing at the same time.
get a lawyer, you know, give them a stipend or like a bank of cash, and get your family and friends, if they want money, they get it through the lawyer, and the lawyer is impartial, you know, just gives out 10 grand to each person a year, you know, and that's it. Don't tell anybody you won the lottery, all that kind of stuff. Don't change your lifestyle. I love that.
Yeah.
But the other one I think about is like, what would I do if like everybody on the internet like hated me? Like, what if I accidentally became Twitter's main character for a day, like Bean Dad or something? Because that guy didn't see that coming, right? He was telling a story about his daughter trying to open a can of beans, and he got obliterated.
Yeah.
And the strategy that I've seen for like, if you are being publicly shamed, is to just ignore it. Go away for a week, come back a week later, pretend everything's fine. Eventually, somebody else will mess up and they'll become the main character, and you're away scot-free. So like, the idea of them going, look, in 2 years, we'll go to the Winchester and this will all blow over, you know? Because I reckon that would work.
Yeah, absolutely. There's an Always Sunny episode that's around the 24-hour news cycle, and they and they're just like, as long as we don't fuck up in the next 24 hours, we'll be fine. But then the point of the show is they just keep resetting the clock. Goes up another 24 hours because something more horrible has happened. But yeah, no, absolutely, that is a thing, and you do see it, especially on Twitter. You do see people be the villain of the week, and everybody hates them, and they're on 9 million block lists, and then 7 days later, it's nothing really has changed.
Works.
And whether, you know, that is, I think a 24-hour news cycle is a legitimate PR, like that is a known thing. It's not just parody here. So I wanted to loop back around to for me personally. So again, put this through my filter of naivety and ignorance to a certain extent, of like this podcast. Let's go meta for a second.
Okay, yeah.
Is not monetized in that I don't run ads. Mainly because I don't know how, but we'll cover that on another episode. We'll cross that bridge later. But like, no one's paying. I don't pay anybody else to do it. It is just little old me. There's no cash flow in. There's no cash flow out. It's all just me download as an individual. So me in my naive brain says I should be okay. But then that feels like maybe not now with this new crazy scary 1.1 on the horizon.
Look, I think like directly, I think you'll be okay. But what's frustrating is the uncertainty and like the idea that stuff could change in the future. And I don't think Wizards of the Coast are villains. They're not trying to hurt people. They're trying to make money.
Yes.
People are in the way of that.
Pesky people, always in the way trying to make money.
Get out of the way of my money. And like I said, like no moral side in them for trying to do that. That's well within their rights. But let's talk about Critical Role.
Yeah. So I did think that as well, like in obviously the last couple of weeks, because obviously the biggest monetary benefactor from D&D is Critical Role, I think probably by a huge margin. I can't think of any other private or third party that are making. There's probably some authors or licensed other like Forbidden Planet or something that are making money somehow off of it. But the first one that springs to mind is obviously who's earning over 50k. Absolutely is Critical Role Inc.
Yeah.
So like they're either very scared or very not scared, again because of this uncertainty, right? It's either a huge thing or maybe they get some special swerve.
Yeah, they've absolutely got a bespoke license, because one thing that they said is that all of the big companies and creators, for example, Fantasy Grounds, Roll20, Kickstarter, Critical Role probably, and maybe some other big ones, some partners, they have bespoke licenses with bespoke terms.
Oh, okay.
And we're never going to know what those terms are. But if I were CEO of Critical Role, big boy Travis Willingham, I would be frustrated because the more money you have in something, the more you value stability. And the more you're willing to pay for stability. We was talking about earlier about how Critical Role had their own controversy around their license agreement. And it was the fan content agreement it was. And they've got a really generous fan content thing going on. But what they were saying is within the first 3 or 4 days of an episode of Critical Role coming out, we don't want people to talk about it. Like, we don't want people to post spoilers and stuff like that. And that's similar to like what the NFL does, like the gridiron American football stuff. They have some kind of rebroadcasting or like some embargo on clips for like 24 hours or something after a game. I don't know exactly. But that felt like overreaching to me, just because it's like, hey, you got the biggest Dungeons and Dragons show in the world and we're not allowed to talk about it? Come on. Come on. But for Critical Role, my question is, at what point do they go, we value stability so much that we're willing to go, we're going to make our own game? Or we're going to start to separate from D&D?
Oh, yeah. Oh, that is a... Yeah, I wouldn't like to be in that boardroom for sure. When do we make that leap? Because absolutely they could, they've got design heads between them to make their own system or whatnot. So they could absolutely do that, and then what can be completely disassociate themselves from that brand. Oh, that is a pros and cons spreadsheet that I'd like to see here.
Yeah. Well, have you heard how Paizo and Pathfinder came around?
because was that second E to third E? Is that one the Great Divide?
I think it was like third to fourth.
Ah, okay, right. And was that a similar situation? I vaguely remember.
Now, I don't know exactly, but I do know that there was some element of licensing involved, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they went, well, we like third edition. If you're going to make fourth edition, we're going to make our version of third edition. Mm-hmm. And so I can imagine Critical Role saying, look, hey, but we like this loosey-goosey style of role-play and stuff. So we're going to make our version of that. Mm. And then if Critical Role make a game and it's just the Pathfinder, but for 5th edition. Mm-hmm. And that'd be cool, because they could do it really well. They've got their own publishing branch. They've got the Darrington Press. They put out board games and stuff. They've got design heads, like you said. Mm-hmm. They've got the marketing and media presence to actually sell it.
Yeah.
They've got a lot of goodwill. Ooh. Yeah, I reckon that would be cool. I just want to see what their OGL's like.
Can you imagine if they came out and it was like way more restrictive? We want $1. We want 75% of that dollar. Just in for a penny, in for a pound. Like that. So fuck it, double down.
Yeah, give me the penny and the pound. You see the stuff with Kickstarter?
What, for the OGL or?
Yeah,
it's their preferred. All I know is that's their preferred crowdfunding platform, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the people at Kickstarter on Twitter, I saw, they negotiated with Wizards on the new OGL because at the moment, if you make over $750,000 on every dollar that got above that threshold, you're paying 25%. So Kickstarter negotiated with Wizards to get that down on Kickstarter to 20%, right? And so, but if you crowdfund on any other platform, you're going to get charged a full 25%, on Kickstarter the 20%. And someone at some point was saying, oh yeah, so that means that they've negotiated a kickback for themselves. They get to keep the 5%. But Kickstarter came out and said, no. We negotiated that on behalf of, creators. This is Wizards of the Coast license. And we were just advocating for you. We're not making any money off it. Because in fact, I bet as a result of the OGL, there's going to be fewer things that are made, and Kickstarter's going to make less money.
Yeah,
I think everybody except Wizards is going to make less money. There won't be anyone that makes more money from this.
No. Just the money they would have made goes somewhere else.
Yeah.
Now I've got an episode on Kickstarter. If anyone wants to go and find it out, you can go to thinkcritically.co.uk/Kickstarter and you can listen to about marketing and stuff on there. But I haven't used it myself. Obviously, I'm literally waiting for the next couple of weeks for my Frosthaven to be delivered to my door, which was backed through Kickstarter, and now we've reached the limit of my experience with that crowdfunding platform. I would like to give them the benefit of the doubt and say there was no shady kickback and backdoor dealings and so on and so on. If that is the case, then that is great because somebody think of the children and so somebody is in this instance. But what that brings to mind is, ironically, Kickstarter itself was part of its own Villain of the Week episode, maybe the year before last, when it was around their proposed use of the blockchain. And they were then the villain for a week and a half. And then everyone jumped ship from Kickstarter. Never going to use it again. Horrible, blah, blah, blah. To then going to use Backer Kit was the other one that, we hate the blockchain and we'll never use it. And then everyone went to use Backer Kit. And again, a similar situation to how we kind of find ourselves in now, where most people wouldn't even know the difference because, this is a cool watch on Kickstarter. Fine, here's $10 and I'm none the wiser. So that, that was a similar situation, but it just the parallels made me a wry smile appeared across my face when I did read about that they've negotiated a deal, and I was like, oh yeah, people did hate them though. So now maybe they're just trying to win back some of that will they lost a year and a half ago.
Well, it is tricky. Like we were saying earlier, it's not the end of the world to be unpopular. You can be drastically unpopular as well, and someone's going to like you. It's crazy. It's crazy.
When they say all news is good news.
I don't think they say that. Nobody says that. No. It's no news is good news.
Oh, no, wait. No. Well, definitely no news is good news is definitely one. But I feel like there is one that's like, you do it.
All news is good news?
No, well, maybe not that verbatim, but there is one that's like all publicity is good publicity.
There's no such thing as bad publicity.
There we go. That's what we got there at the end. We crowdsourced that.
We did. We did.
Thank you for doing most of the heavy lifting on that. That's that boba brain is doing there.
It is. I had that good ice block. So people are going to do that thing like they're doing with Twitter. Like, oh, Elon Musk has bought Twitter. I'm going to go to Hive. You know, and Hive is absolute dog shit. It sucks. Barely works, right? And everybody's just so smug and happy to be there. So people are going to do the same thing with D&D. I'm going to go play something else. But it's like that person said to Jenny D, now you're going to try Pathfinder, right? Pathfinder uses the OGL. So there's going to be some indie game or a bunch of indie games that come up and people are going to be like fractured. And the community is going to go a whole bunch of different ways, the people that do decide to jump ship.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, I don't know much about other TTRPGs, but if you do know of any, what do you reckon could be a contender to like eat some of D&D's lunch, do you reckon?
Oh, man, I don't know.
Do you reckon it exists yet or not?
I would say no, not now. You talked about maybe, Critical Role doing their own thing. That would be the one, in my opinion, that would be any kind of close. And you've seen, I can't recall off the top of my head, but I've seen charts, like market share charts in the past of TTRPGs, and it's like 70% is like an obnoxiously large amount is D&D. The stuff you only get when you talk about like Apple is 50. Even Apple has less share of the smartphone market than Wizards do with D&D of the TTRPG market, which is saying something. So no, not from the experience I've had. One good thing I like about D&D being so ubiquitous is it's kind of like a baseline understanding of, it gives everybody a baseline understanding of TTRPGs. So like if someone's played anything else, they'll know what a D20 is, versus somebody who's never played any TTRPGs. So there's everybody knows about it. Everyone kind of gets skill checks and ability checks, and it's this kind of fundamental baseline understanding for, it does have a benefit of being that. That's one benefit of it being that ubiquitous. And there's also a discussion of people, people never want to try any other TTRPGs because, they have to learn something new. Yeah. And I'm like, well, you do have to learn something new.
I hate the people that say that, though. It's like, why are you trying to make D&D do this kind of story when you can play this RPG that is specifically made to do that kind of story, and it's only a page long, and there's no support for it.
And nobody plays it, and
nobody plays it.
5 other people how to play it. Yeah, because like I know what I'm going to do every other Sunday. I'm going to go, and the 5 guys I play with, we're all have the same knowledge. We're absolutely in the same place. If I go, guys, sit down and listen to me talk for 3 hours while I talk and explain how this new thing works, that's not fun. And people say that like trying to TTRPGs and all that other stuff. I bought the Alien starter set and I read through it all, and I went, I'm never going to play this because I have to remember all these rules, and then I'm going to have to teach 5 other people all these rules that have got no experience, very little willingness to try that. In everybody's busy schedules of life, it's like, well,
do you know what's... Man, you just reminded me of something. Like, D&D is so ubiquitous that I saw something on the TTRPG subreddit, and like, or whichever subreddit it is, that they go, we want to make our own systems and our own rules, like TTRPG design or something. And there was a post that somebody made like a year ago, but they were talking about how if you're publishing an RPG, it's not a bad idea to include a paragraph right at the start. How is this different from D&D? How does it compare? Because immediately, if you just put your rules and your system in that frame, if you go, this is less crunchy than D&D. You're going to need fewer dice and the games are shorter. Like, that's helpful. And immediately I know what you're talking about. With the changes to the OGL, you can't do that. If you don't have an OGL, you can't do that. You can't even compare. You can't even say Dungeons and Dragons. That's why so many OSR products don't say D&D. They'll say 5e or like if they're referring to 5th edition, they'll say 5e or 3e because that's not the trademark. It's D&D.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. I can see.
I'm quite sentimental about it, man. I do like D&D, and if I imagine a worst case scenario for the company, and I don't think that there will be any kind of catastrophic fallout for Wizards of the Coast or D&D or whatever. But like if it became no longer popular, or if every time you talked about it, you had someone going, why are you playing that? Aren't those the bad guys? That would hurt. Like I do like D&D because it's D&D. I do like the brand name. You know, I do like the legacy. I've got all the, I don't have all the 3rd edition books. I've got almost all the 3rd edition books, all the 4th edition books, all the 5th edition books. I've got a spattering of 2nd edition books. I've got a couple of like relics of like, sometimes I will go on like our equivalent of Craigslist. It's called Gumtree in Australia. And I will buy scraps of RPG books. Like in the same way that people have a box full of cables in their home that they don't know what it's for, I buy the scrap of pages of RPG things. This is a book that got torn in half and it's got things built on it. And I've got all these like map posters of Ravenloft, like the whole continent, not just Barovia. I've got like the whole thing, and I've got these posters of like really serious looking Addams Family style families. On the back it says this character is a werewolf and this one died at the age of 13 but came back as a ghost. Like all this like real old school stuff, and I don't know what these products are for. It's just part of this ongoing story that we've been telling for like 50 years. And now we have somebody kind of trying to swing that sentimentality, that real thing that exists. They're swinging it like a club, and they're making money off it. And it hurts. It's hurtful. You know, it's sad. That said, we don't know the 100% of it, but when I imagine it going bad, I get sad about it.
Just what you want for rainy January. Thanks, Wizards. the one final thing I wanted to talk about that is off of the back of something we talked about earlier on about. I think we almost opened it with, you know, I've made this NPC. Is that now them there to use? And I do remember reading over the past couple of days people trying to. Again, this is the kind of stuff that frustrates me, is when you get into this weird, murky, like, oh, but how have you defined, you know, you can copyright X, but you can't copyright Y, but Y is covered by IP. And there's this whole discussion now about like, about what game rules, that was it, game mechanics. So game mechanics can't be copyrighted. Again, don't quote me on that and take me to court, but I think if memory serves, that's what they were saying. So like, what constitutes game mechanics? And you get into this murky world of like, well, ability scores and that are such an intrinsic part of D&D that they could be copyrighted because they now are kind of like part of the brand, but other things aren't quite that big. So like just rolling a d20, for example, can't be copyrighted. And like the fact that can of worms is opened, that annoys me.
that is tricky. I've heard that same thing said in like, I don't watch much OSR content. I only watch Questing Beast because I've never played OSR stuff, but I just like the way Questing Beast presents his stuff, and it's fun, even though I sometimes don't understand it. But that's something that he said. He said, "Look, you can't copyright game rules at some point," and maybe he's right. I don't know, but I imagine even if that were true, you still could copyright the verbiage of it, right? So the common wisdom I've heard is, oh, you can use the game rules, but you just can't use their wording of it. So I would imagine you could have a system of ability scores and modifiers, and skill checks and ability checks and attack rolls, but you could not call them any of those. It would have to be a violence check and an aptitude roll, you know? And I don't even know if that's true. That's like my current imagination of what it's going to be. And that's also what I'm going to have to do to all of my content if they decide to revoke the 1.1, the 1.0 OGL. It's going to be rough.
Genericize it all. It's just such a pain. And then again, at that point, you're just like, if people are doing systems that are just the D&D rulebook passed through an AI to thesauricize and synonymize all those words, then it's like it's just pointless. It's just a waste of time. Like,
yeah, it's like it's not even D&D anymore. It's just ampersand. Like, yeah. What is this? Where's my content?
I'm trying to think, like, how could I genericize the stuff I had in mind? One chapter, and those who follow my campaign and that did get streamed, that could be genericized because it was some time loop thing I ran where all the characters were stripped of their abilities and magic anyway, so it was pared back to very bare bones. In fact, that we didn't barely roll any dice, and there was barely any checks, and that was kind of the intent I wanted to do. So that might be safe. The other one I was doing, yeah, not so much. that one's full on, like, there's a dragon, there's a green dragon. It exhibits these personality traits that are ripped from the monster manual.
So here's something that I want to ask you, though. The way that you and I are talking about it, we are going like, we've kind of talking about it in a way where we've made it a foregone conclusion. It's like, well, we're not going to sign the new OGL. But is that how you feel? Do you see a world where you would just go, oh, look, I'll just sign it. Screw it. I'll put the badge on. I don't care.
Well, to loop back to what I said, once if it becomes clear that they could just rip it and use it for their own and not even basically credit you to it and republish it as how they want. It may have sounded earlier on like I don't have any morals, like I would sell my soul for a tax break. But there is a moat within me that would be like, no, that's my thing, and I want to keep it my thing, and that's wrong that they would do that. So in that case, no, I would probably be like, I kind of want that thing to be mine. I want that thing to be uniquely Danilo, and if I give it away, then it's no longer. It's out in this weird amorphous wilderness where it can change and be repurposed and republished, and God knows where it's going to end up. I would perhaps try and genericize it, but again, I have the benefit of being lazy and having not written much, so and not published anything.
I want to test your feelings on this. I want to test your morals. So at the moment, the way you're imagining is like, well, they could use it any way they want, right? And they don't even have to credit me. What if they did have to credit with you? Would you be okay with that?
Yeah, that would be a lot better. As long, I am in my business life, my professional life, a huge proponent of transparency and credit where credit's due. I'm very much I want to be a leader and not manager. So like, hey, the team did this, not me. I just told them when it had to be done by. So like the credit goes to them and not to me. So that cascades down into this kind of stuff where if the credit is due to me, then fucking give it to me.
Yeah, man. What about this? Imagine if they went, it goes both ways. You know, if you use our content, you make $750,000 from using our content, then you have to pay us 25% of what you earn. What if they use your content and they make a bunch of money, then they have to start paying you? That would be cool.
That would be cool. Imagine that's what happens. Imagine you're about to go to bed. Imagine you go to bed now, you wake up in 8 hours, and they've released the 1.1b officially released, and it says in there, if we make any money off of your stuff, you get 25% of it. Imagine the world we would be living in.
That'd be so good. And then like what actually wakes me up is Chris Perkins with a gun and a badge kicking in my door. I think he's going to drag me away, but he actually just hands me a check. Goes, Mr. Perkins, here you go. I go, thanks, Dad. I love you.
Can we have that be the expose of this episode? Can we have that be the, by the way? That would be so wild. And then Matthew Mercer gets his kickback for the Blood Hunter and the Gunslinger. And he just puts it in his big pot of money next to him and a couple of coins on top. And
Yeah. I love that we're doing kind of like after credit scenes, but for D&D. I like, okay, so, and Matt Colville, he gets off the phone with Mr. Kickstarter and he says, thanks for negotiating on our behalf, Mr. Kickstarter. He says, no problem, Matt. He says, and then Matt goes, I love you. And then he hangs up the phone and he turns around and he walks back into the MCDM building. I don't know. I'm out of ideas. I can't improv.
There's a baby crying in a pram, and he just hushes it to sleep, and then and thank you so much, Matthew. No, thank Wizards of the Coast.
Thank Wizards of the Coast.
That's the
yeah, that's cool. That should be the D&D movie. That's what they should do. Like, why aren't they doing that? Oh, dude, Honor Among Thieves. It all makes sense.
Oh God, is the Honor Among Thieves D&D film they're going to release the OGL at the end? That's going to be the post credits of Honor Among Thieves. Is a 9,000 word document scrolls up on the cinema screen, and you have to sit there and watch it.
Yeah, that's fun.
There's all these mums and partners that are like, what the fuck is that? And like the 4 nerds in the cinema that are like, no, this is very important.
This is important. If you blink, you are going straight to prison. Do you have any predictions? Like as just final thoughts, like what do you think will happen? Like, we can meme and catastrophize and enjoy the drama of, slagging off Wizards of the Coast. But like, what do you think will actually happen?
As with most things that we kind of touched upon, a lot of it is going to be a storm in a teacup. And now I don't want to say that and belittle people such as yourselves who are going to be, people's lives are affected by this.
Financially ruined, yes.
Yeah, I don't want to, downplay that, just for the record. I don't want to downplay that. But as a cultural icon, as a thing that people do on a regular basis, as we've said, that is not going to change. There'll still be D&D clubs.
Yeah.
In my local town. There'll still be kids throwing dice, barely understanding the rules, but having a great time, which is the most important thing in D&D, 6e, 1, whatever you want to call it. That is still going to happen, despite the Twitter poll I saw recently that was like, are you going elsewhere? 95% of people saying yes. Right, okay, probably not. Like, there is very much that. So, yes. Is it world-changing? No. Is money going to go left when it was going right? Yeah, but are some people such as yourself going to have to be a little bit more worried and scared for yourselves? Yes, and I'm sorry to hear that, but maybe I'm too corporate and too capitalistic minded and to say like maybe we've had the gravy train too long and we've gotten away with it for free for too long, and now it's just the reality of pretty much anything else. Like, if I'm going to use an Apple product, like if I made an app for the App Store, they take fuck knows how much they take, 50%. I don't know. It's probably some obnoxiously high amount, isn't it, that the Apple Store take for apps on there? And is this, how different is it to that? If I make a module for D&D that completely uses everything that has been provided by somebody else apart from my creative input, then 25%. I don't know. I'd need to check the cut that other similar things take. So I don't know. Maybe I'm too cynical and too been brainwashed by capitalism to see, but it's at the very least it's interesting, and I'm interested to see what's going to happen.
It is interesting, yeah. And even though, like, I feel sentimental about D&D, if they've made analysis and gone, this is the correct thing, they're probably right. It's just that they want something different that I want. You know what I mean? And so even if I think it will be worse for me, no matter what. Imagine if they've done an analysis and went, overall, this will be better for the hobby. Imagine if they've worked that out. Imagine if they're right. Even if that were true, it would still be worse for me. But like, I don't trust their intent, but I do trust their ability to execute on their intent, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So like, I don't think they're doing a stupid thing. I just don't know what their goal is, right?
Yeah.
Or like, or I'm not sharing their goal. And that's okay. No, you know, I don't think it's immoral what they're doing. I just think it's something that's going to suck for me for a little bit. But dude, I'm like a rat. I'm tenacious. I'm hard to kill, you know? I'm still around.
That's what I always say. Like, me, stupid little rainy England man, it does not have.
Call yourself Rainy England man.
Rainy England man. Yep. I need to update the Thinking Critically bio now to be like, it's run by Rainy England man down below. Because self-quoting is totally not arrogant at all. Who am I to say I know better than teams of exceptionally well-paid data analysts and marketers and PR people? Like, I have to give the benefit of the doubt to these huge companies that they know, like, they're not deliberately throwing themselves under the bus. Like, they're not deliberately trying to sabotage their own business. Many very clever people with huge stakes in the game have said, overall, this should be positive for at least our bank accounts. If not, their bank accounts are based on people spending money. So they want more people to spend money. So it just is, as you said, there's pesky people in the way. But, that is often the case, unfortunately. But I'm glad that you are in your characteristic high spirits around it. That makes me happy.
Oh, sweet, man. Yeah, I've got a plan. I think it'll just be a really bad bit of time. Like, the labor of having to genericize things will be actually frustrating and difficult, and there's going to be things that I can't genericize. There's going to be things that I've paid for and worked for and sold and people like that I'm going to have to just turf, because I'm like, there's no way I can genericize this paladin subclass. It's gone, you know? I just wonder how much time they'll give me to do that.
Yeah, because there has been comments, looking at the article and stuff, where it's like, oh, this is released next week, so do the thing now. Like,
I've seen that as well, but like, I'm not going to do anything until Wizards release a statement.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, yeah. Until that comes out, yeah. Talking to subclasses, just quickly, have also been with another previous guest of the show. I have been working on some like parody subclasses that are like jokes of some other thing we've been working on, other popular culture thing. So I'm like, not really legitimate, like the balance and stuff, because for me, I can't sleep at night if things aren't balanced. So, but they are, they're not meant to be taken into like your super gritty campaign. Yeah. Well, they haven't been released yet, and now I'm like, oh, I guess maybe that has to stop, which would be a shame. Because again, there's no way the whole point of the joke is that it's done up like a serious face D&D, subclass, and it's I guess now maybe we wouldn't be able to do that. But that was using the SRD, and like the person I was working with was very much like, if we stick to the SRD, then you can't use that spell. And I've gone, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. So sorry, I just used some random spell, but I understand now. Then we'll be fine. But even that is now like put into question of, as you said, like as soon as you use Paladin, that's it. That's whoops, you're in the same bucket as everybody, in the same ship as everyone else.
I'm going to have, instead of a Paladin subclass, I'm going to have to do a Palafriend, Palafriend variant.
Variant. Yeah. Holy warrior. Guys, I almost said cleric. Can't say that.
Do you reckon you could use an AI to go like, I'm going to plug in my subclass that I wrote and just go, I need you to substitute all the illegal words, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you're going to get some maybe some mangled text out the other side, but hey, at least you won't have to give your money to Wizards of the Coast.
That's it.
Do you have anything else you wanted to talk about on this topic?
Oh, no. Can I plug my stuff?
Absolutely. You've done this rodeo before, you know that.
Yeah, but it's polite to ask. How it goes. Yeah, I'm out of OGL knowledge, but tell you what, I do have plenty of time, and I like to talk about Durgans and Durkins, which is what I legally have to call it now. So my name is Matthew Perkins. My handle on everything is @HeyIt'sMatty P, and over on YouTube, I am doing videos about Dragons of Stormwreck Isle, which is the 2022 starter set. And dude, I have transformed this starter set into something real fun. If you've got somebody in your life that has wanted to get into D&D, wants to try running it, maybe a niece or a nephew or your girlfriend, your brother, whoever it is, and they're feeling nervous, send them these videos, give them this starter set. It costs $20. It's about a 4-session long campaign, and my videos will help you transform that into a really memorable experience. And if I haven't been sued into oblivion then there's also resources on my Patreon.
Please subscribe to his Patreon. Now is the time. Yeah, no, absolutely. As mentioned at the head of the show, Matt's been on before for the pressure episodes. Please go and check that one out as well. And I understand that both the starter set that preceded Stormwreck Isle, is that correct? Stormwreck Isle, yeah, have been a bit trickier. So I like absolutely, there's value in having these, you know, an expert, if you'll allow me to call you, to hold your hand and guide you through those experiences. Like, that is a known thing that is very useful. So please, absolutely go and check it out. As usual, all the links will be in the episode description below. Just checking if it's still below on YouTube, and it is.
It is.
I can now do this, and people know like it's a thing that's happening. So please go and check out Matty P's stuff there, as well as Twitter and everything, right? We talk on Twitter and
yeah. Hey, it's the same handle everywhere, at @HeyIt'sMattyP on every platform, which is honestly really gratifying. I was so glad I got that handle. Nobody take it anywhere. If they make like a smelling bloody social media smellogram, if you make Hey It's Matty P there, I'm gonna get my dad to sue you.
You mean Matthew, the other Matthew Perkins?
The other Matthew Perkins, the Chris Perkins.
Oh God! Yes, absolutely cool. All right then. Well, that brings us to the end of today's discussion on OGL. Yeah. So one final thing I have to say is thank you very much, Matty P, for joining us today.
Oh, no problem, man. One last thing I want to say is like just asterisks, just so I don't get sued. Chris Perkins isn't really my dad. This is a goof. It's a goof and a gaff. I'm sorry, Chris. Absolutely, yes. And no one's going to kick down your door. That's also for parody only. Yeah,
satire. Yeah. So yeah. Thank you so much to Matty P for jumping on again. Always a pleasure. Thank you everybody at home for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this return to the show after our holiday break. As usual, check me out on all my socials. Unfortunately, don't have the same tag everywhere because I'm an idiot and don't know what I'm doing most of the time. But it's all on thinkingcritically.co.uk. So check it out all there. Otherwise, thank you everybody for listening. Bye. And now it's time for the Patreon shout-outs. Thank you to Joe from the Fourth Leg podcast. Again, 2-time guests of the show. And the Fourth Leg is a ttrpg podcast all about giving new GMs a leg to stand on. Please go and check them out at the Fourth Leg on Twitter. Thank you to Optional Rule, a 2-time guest of the show and a very insightful and knowledgeable source of information. Please check them out at www.optionalrule.com. Huge thank you to a great friend of the show, Matthew Perkins, who's out there making hilarious and educational Dungeons & Dragons content. Please go and check out his stuff at matthewperkins.net, where you can find links to all of his socials and all of his content, including his own Patreon, which I would very much encourage you to check out. Thank you to Matt Street at mpstreet88 on Twitter for supporting the show. If you need support running your personal or business schedule, head to virtualtimehustle.com or on Instagram to make that difference between should do and done. Boss it better with support from Kat, who will help you get back that essential time you've been searching for. If you would like to support what we do and get 4 shout-outs a month, head over to patreon.com/thinkingcritically, or you can just buy me a coffee at ko-fi.com/thinkingcritically